The story begins with a sequence that shifts back and forth between the lives of two central characters, both situated in Russia. The first character is Dominika Egorova, a celebrated ballerina known for her grace and beauty. She lives with and takes care of her sick mother. After one of her mother's medical checkups, Dominika arranges for a caretaker to look after her mom so she can return to work at the ballet theater. Upon arriving at the theater, she changes into her costume, applies her makeup, and prepares for the evening's performance. Before the show begins, she meets the guests backstage, among whom is her powerful uncle, Ivan Egorov, the deputy director of the Russian Secret Service. Ivan introduces her to Dmitry Ustinov, a sleazy Russian gangster who behaves inappropriately, asking for a photo and using the opportunity to grope her. Moments later, the performance begins. Dominika dances magnificently, captivating the audience with her poise and skill. But disaster strikes mid-performance. Her male dance partner jumps and lands heavily on her leg, snapping the bone. Dominika screams in pain and is rushed into emergency surgery. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Nate Nash, a CIA operative stationed in Russia. Nate receives a coded phone call from an automated system that delivers specific trigger words. Using the code, he deciphers the location of his next rendezvous and arms himself before heading out. The meeting point is a quiet park at night. Upon arriving, Nate notices a car tailing him. He maintains his composure as Marble, a secret informant, approaches him. As the two men pass each other, Nate subtly hands Marble an item. They continue walking, pretending not to know each other. But the car continues to follow Nate. To distract the pursuers and give Marble a chance to escape, Nate fires his gun at the ground, prompting a chase. He runs through the city and just barely makes it to the safety of the American embassy, where he's immediately surrounded by Russian police. Inside the embassy, his superiors inform him that Marble is safe, but that Nate will be sent back to the U.S. for compromising the mission. The following day, Ivan visits Colonel Zakharov, the director of the Russian Secret Service, in his office. General Vladimir Korchnoi is also present. The two men show Ivan security footage of Nate's park meeting. While Nate has already fled the country, they are more interested in identifying Marble, the mysterious contact. The story returns to Dominika, who wakes up in the hospital to find her leg in a metal brace. Upon realizing she will never be able to dance again, she breaks down in tears. 3 months pass. Dominika, now using a cane, receives a visit from her uncle Ivan. He bluntly informs her that she has already been replaced at the theater and that the apartment and her mother's medical care, previously provided by the theater, will no longer be covered. Ivan offers to help, but only if Dominika agrees to help him in return. He leaves an envelope behind before leaving. Curious, Dominika opens the envelope and finds incriminating photos of her dance partner and her replacement engaged in a romantic relationship. There's also an audio recording implying that her partner injured her on purpose so his girlfriend could take her spot. Fueled by betrayal, Dominika visits the theater to spy on her former colleagues. She sees them rehearsing, then follows them to the steam room where they are intimate. Overcome with rage, Dominika violently attacks them with her cane, beating them until they collapse. Shaken, she flees the scene. On her way home, she notices her hands are stained with blood. Overwhelmed, she stops at a payphone and anonymously reports the incident as an accident. When she returns to her apartment, she finds her mother collapsed on the bathroom floor. The caretaker is nowhere to be found. She had stopped coming after the theater ceased payment. Now desperate, Dominika turns to her uncle Ivan for help. Ivan agrees, on one condition. He wants Dominika to get close to Ustinov, the gangster she had met earlier. Her task, seduce him and gain his trust to gather intelligence. Dominika initially refuses, but Ivan convinces her by offering the best medical treatment for her mother, something state hospitals could never provide. That night, Dominika goes to the hotel where Ustinov is staying, dressed in a provocative gown. She sits at the bar, waiting for Ustinov to approach her, which he does. She tells him she came because she wanted to feel special again. Ustinov is easily convinced and takes her to her room. Dominika asks his guards to give them privacy. Inside, Ustinov wastes no time. He begins undressing and asks Dominika to do the same. With some hesitation, she obeys. As things escalate, a man in a black helmet suddenly appears from behind Ustinov and slits his throat. The gangster collapses to the floor, dead. The assassin gestures for Dominika to stay quiet and throws her a coat to cover her bloodied body. He leads her out through the hotel's back door. On the way to the parking lot, he shoots a hotel employee before taking Dominika on his motorcycle. They arrive at an abandoned warehouse. The man removes his helmet. It's Sergei Matorin, another Secret Service operative. Ivan and General Korchnoi are watching everything from another room via surveillance cameras. Korchnoi suggests Dominika should be eliminated since she's a witness, but Ivan argues that she could still be useful. Ivan enters the room to speak to Dominika. He confesses he knew what was going to happen that night, but didn't tell her, knowing she would have never agreed otherwise. He offers her a new path. She's clearly capable, and he wants her to join a special training facility. If she refuses, he warns, he won't be able to protect her. With no other option, Dominika agrees and is sent to Sparrow School, a secret intelligence training facility. Upon arrival, she is greeted by the matron, the headmistress of the school. She assigns Dominika a fake name and takes her to her room. Classes begin swiftly. Matron lectures about how the modern world is in chaos and that only Russia has the will to fix it. The students will be trained as sparrows, agents specializing in seduction and psychological manipulation. In one class, Matron calls Dominika and a male student, Victor, to the front. They are ordered to strip. Victor complies easily, but Dominika hesitates. Matron scolds her, accusing her of weakness. Meanwhile, in the US, Nate appears before the CIA's disciplinary panel. He's told he is suspended and cannot leave the country. He argues that Marble, the mole, has trusted only him for 3 years and will not cooperate with anyone else. Although he isn't listened to at first, a compromise is reached. Nate can be stationed in a nearby country, ensuring Russian intelligence notices his presence and Marble resurfaces. Nate agrees to go, taking a team with him. Back at Sparrow School, the students are instructed to entertain soldiers who've returned from war. Dominika selects a young man and takes him to her room, successfully completing the mission. Later, the class is made to watch surveillance footage of their performances. Matron compliments Dominika's technique, but notes she still hasn't fully surrendered herself. In the showers later, Dominika is assaulted by Victor. She fights back fiercely, yanking a water tap from the wall and beating him with it. At the same time, Ivan, Korchnoi, and Zakharov discuss Nate's relocation to Budapest. They want to act, but are cautious not to trigger political tension with the US. Ivan suggests assigning the case to someone new. Back at Sparrow School, Matron and Korchnoi confront Dominika over the incident with Victor. Matron sees untapped potential in Dominika. Korchnoi asks to speak to her privately. Once alone, he questions her motivations. Dominika answers confidently. She serves the state, not her fellow classmates. Korchnoi is impressed and allows her to return to class. As she enters, Matron once again calls Dominika to the front. This time, while Korchnoi watches through a security camera, observing her every move, gauging whether she is ready to become a true sparrow. Dominika is once again brought to the front of the class at Sparrow School and shown a picture of Victor. Matron asks her what Victor wants, and when he enters the room, she orders Dominika to give him exactly that. Victor commands her to turn around, but Dominika refuses to submit passively. Instead, she takes control of the situation. She begins to undress while keeping eye contact, instructing Victor to look only at her. As she stands fully naked, she sits on a table with her legs apart, taunting Victor to come take her. But the moment is too intense for Victor. He becomes flustered, unable to perform, and quickly runs away in embarrassment when Dominika mocks him for it. Once he leaves, Dominika calmly answers Matron's original question. What Victor wants is power. Watching remotely, General Korchnoi is visibly impressed with her insight and control. Later, Matron calls Dominika into her office and informs her that she's being sent back to Moscow. Her training at Sparrow School is over. A few days later, Dominika reunites with her mother at their apartment. While they're together, she receives a call instructing her to meet Ivan at a restaurant. When she arrives, Ivan explains her next mission. She's being sent to Budapest to befriend Nate Nash and gain his trust in order to discover the identity of the American mole embedded within Russian intelligence. Ivan hands her a new passport and identity documents with a different name. Dominika listens without touching her food, then leaves. Soon after, she arrives in Budapest and moves into an apartment she shares with another sparrow, Marta. Later that day, she meets her new handler, Station Chief Maxim Volantov, and requests background information on Nate. After their meeting, she begins tailing Nate, watching him closely to understand his routines. The next day, Dominika starts frequenting the same public swimming pool that Nate uses. She makes herself visible, but lets Nate approach her on his own terms as they leave the building. Their initial conversation is light and flirtatious. Dominika pretends to be a translator working for the Russian embassy. She keeps her guard up and plays hard to get. However, the next day, Nate is nowhere to be found at the pool. When Dominika inquires, the receptionist informs her that her ID card has gone missing. Unbeknownst to her, Nate already suspects she isn't who she says she is. We cut to Nate, who's in a briefing room with his CIA superiors, explaining that she's been using multiple aliases and has clear ties to Ivan Igorov. Nate believes Dominika is valuable and that her use of her real name is a deliberate move, possibly a provocation. His superiors agree to let Nate get closer to her in the hopes of drawing out intelligence. Dominika, meanwhile, continues her mission. She reports her progress to Volantov and requests clearance to access the embassy. There, she spots Marta having a conversation with Stephanie Boucher, an American senator. Nate interrupts Dominika's gaze, revealing that he was the one who stole her ID at the pool. He then asks her to dinner the next evening. Dominika accepts. Back at the apartment, Dominika snoops through Marta's room and discovers evidence that Marta has been buying intelligence from Boucher. Marta returns, but doesn't catch Dominika in the act. She casually hands Dominika a copy of the report Volantov sent to Moscow. It's clear now, Dominika has made an enemy. The next day, Dominika tails Volantov to a bar and proposes a deal: write a better report about her, and in return, she'll stay quiet. To increase the pressure, she mocks his manhood until he punches her. Security cameras catch everything. Dominika threatens to take the footage to the police unless he complies. That night, Nate waits alone at the restaurant for his date. Thinking he's been stood up, he eventually leaves. Dominika, however, is watching him. When she later arrives at his apartment, teary-eyed, Nate lets her in. Over a drink, she lies and says her boss assaulted her. When Nate asks how she found his address, she turns up the volume on the television so they can't be overheard. Dominika gently asks Nate about what happened in the park back in Russia. After he answers vaguely, she kisses him. Nate tells her she should go home and figure out what she really wants. The next morning, Ivan visits her before heading off to Vienna. He demands progress on her mission, warning that Moscow is growing impatient. Dominika lies, saying she's also assisting Marta in handling the Boucher case, but needs more funds to continue. Ivan agrees to the request. As he prepares to leave, Dominika retrieves his coat and discreetly peeks at his passport, storing the information in her mind. As soon as Ivan leaves, Marta confronts Dominika with a gun. She overheard the lie about Boucher and is furious, as the case is supposed to be hers alone. Dominika talks fast. She promises Marta all the credit and more money. Marta backs off reluctantly. Soon after, Dominika travels to Vienna and opens a secret bank account. Meanwhile, Marta meets with Volantov, proposing a plan to eliminate Dominika. That night, when Dominika returns to the apartment, she finds Marta dead in the bathtub. Suddenly, Sergei Matorin appears and grabs Dominika by the neck, warning her. This is what happens to traitors. Before disappearing, he instructs her to call the police. Meanwhile, Nate updates his superiors. He's met with Marble in Vienna, who handed over files confirming Dominika is a Sparrow. To Nate, this only makes her more viable as a potential defector. Dominika is interrogated by the police, but gives away nothing. When she exits the precinct, Nate is waiting. He takes her back to his place, where he reveals he knows her true identity. Dominika tells him everything about her uncle, the service, and her only priority, her mother. Nate offers her protection if she agrees to work as a double agent. She says she needs time to sleep on it. He gives her the bedroom. Later that night, she comes out and sits beside him. After asking if she can truly trust him, she kisses him, and they make love. The following morning, Dominika accepts Nate's offer. She returns to her routine and writes a fabricated report claiming she has Nate completely under control. She then waits for a signal, a phone call that plays her favorite song. Dominika is summoned to meet with Nate's CIA superiors. To test her loyalty, they put her through a polygraph test. She passes. When they ask what she wants in return, she surprises them by saying she wants money. They laugh at first, but their tone shifts when she reveals she can deliver Stephanie Boucher. That Friday, the entire CIA team flies to London for the sting operation. Dominika stays in a secure hotel room equipped with hidden cameras and a special set of decoy discs. While waiting in the hotel bar, Volantov arrives unexpectedly. Dominika calmly redirects him to her room so he doesn't blow the operation. Soon after, Boucher appears. Dominika approaches her, claiming she was sent by Marta. Boucher is reluctant and tries to leave, but Dominika threatens her with compromising pictures and mentions payment. Boucher agrees and goes with her to the room. Volantov is inside. Boucher exchanges a set of classified discs for money. While pretending to verify them on her laptop, Dominika discreetly swaps the real discs with the fake ones provided by the CIA. She and Volantov then leave, telling Boucher to wait an hour before leaving. But Boucher, drunk and paranoid, exits early. On the street, she realizes she's being tailed and panics. She throws the money in a trash bin and tries to flee, only to be hit and killed by a truck. Dominika and Volantov hear the news while driving, and Volantov immediately receives orders. They are to return to Moscow at once. He takes Dominica's passport. Upon arrival in Moscow, Ivan receives the discs and promptly arrests Valentov. He and Dominica are now both under suspicion for aiding the Americans. Dominica is taken into custody and subjected to torture, beatings, psychological games, and threats. They even show her a video of Valentov being executed. Yet, when the interrogator pulls a gun on her and she lies again, he doesn't shoot. Ivan arrives and she manipulates him, persuading him to protect her. Dominica is released and returns home, but she's deeply traumatized. When her mother approaches to hug her, Dominica recoils. She feels unclean and distant. Later, Ivan returns to his apartment, where he finds Dominica waiting. She informs him that Korchnoi and Zakharov have agreed to let her continue working on Nate's case. She kisses him and leaves. Dominica returns to Budapest and reunites with Nate. Back at his apartment, he questions how she was released so easily, suspecting a trap. Dominica persuades him to relocate her and her mother to the US and asks for more money. He agrees. That night, while they're sleeping, Dominica hears a noise. She goes to the kitchen and finds Sergei Matorin torturing Nate. Feigning loyalty to Sergei, she assists him in hurting Nate to extract the mole's name. But the moment Sergei is distracted, Dominica turns on him. She helps free Nate and, after a violent struggle, kills Sergei with a knife. The next day, Dominica wakes up in the hospital and sneaks out to smoke. She's approached by Korchnoi, who finally reveals he is Marble, the CIA's longtime mole. He confesses that he knows he will soon be discovered and doesn't want to die in vain. He asks Dominica to expose him as the mole so she can be celebrated as a national hero and take his place. She gives no answer. Instead, she visits Nate, says goodbye, and later turns herself into the authorities. She demands to speak with the Russian ambassador, telling him to contact Zakharov. She has the mole's identity and will exchange it for her freedom. That night, a final meeting takes place at an airport. Dominica is escorted to meet the Russians, with Nate walking beside her to confirm the mole's identity. Nate is furious, believing she used him. But Dominica surprises everyone. When the Russians unveil the alleged mole, it's not Korchnoi. It's Ivan, her uncle. Dominica had fabricated evidence from the beginning to frame him. The CIA quickly confirms Ivan's guilt. He is executed by a Russian sniper on the tarmac, and Dominica is flown out by helicopter. Back in Russia, Dominica is hailed as a heroine and rewarded with a comfortable life for her and her mother. The film ends with her receiving a mysterious phone call. On the line, she hears only her favorite song, signaling that Nate is still watching over her.